Shalom, everybody. Not to be dramatic, but I'm recording from a bomb shelter. I'm petting another borrowed cat. Our cat's own Israel. So some of them got so used to being pet by strangers that they go with anybody. The reason I'm recording now is I know, honey. The reason I'm recording now, you want some love? Come. So the reason I wanted to record and share with you was that last week we went to Mayor's house and we did the thrifting in the parking lot of the secondhand store that was closed. We did pick up a couple things. One of them is that child's dress that I showed you that is a size 16. It fit all the way around, I'll show you later, but it was too short. So I stopped by a fabric store where I said that I get really good deals on remnant fabrics. It's not super cheap normally for the public. The fabric quality is medium. It's not great, it's not terrible, it's just medium. So I stopped by just to see on a lark. What's great about picking up remnants at a fabric store that this is especially true in the United States in rural areas where you get to know the people. It's not the same as a chain. Even there you can start to develop relationships and they can tell you what's going on. They just have a different system. They're a lot tighter with the control of their inventory, so there's not going to be a lot of leftovers, so to speak. In this case there are, and whatever's popular, whatever's in season at the time is, I'm sure I'm doing this terribly with the camera. Whatever's in season, whatever's happening is what's going to be the end of the roll that they need to get rid of. I'm certainly doing this badly. What's happening now is we're into the weather where it's like San Francisco summer. Denver fall maybe. It's very bright and sunny, so the UV is very high during the day. It's like sweaty hot during the day. It's not 100 anymore. I really thought about naming this channel So Naked because, well, for obvious reasons. That's probably not the most modest thing you're going to hear. And modest is hottest. Any good American knows. But we're now in the weather where it's sweater weather, and this is like a t-shirt dress, and I have a second layer going on here because it is too short. It hits right at my knees, and in my community that's not really appropriate. So I have like almost like a t-shirt skirt with a lace trim on the bottom, and that just makes it just long enough. The problem is that during the day this is untenable. I mean, some people do it and God bless them, but I'm just not holding there. You can see these sleeves cut right at the limit. It really should be longer just for comfort so that if I can move around, if they don't slide up past my elbow. That's also the sort of the community limit where I live. There are sort of basic bottom lines depending on what observance you hold by. We talk a lot on these fashion channels about clothing being a form of self-expression and identity, and that's all true, but garments also have a protective function, which we also talk about a little bit, right? When we switch from summer to fall to winter clothes, it's because it's getting colder outside. But there's a third element that we don't talk about a lot except for to address like social class, like rich, not rich, or so rich you want to show like you don't care. But in other parts of the world, or maybe even in the United States, I guess in much more religious communities, clothing is also symbolic of who your affiliation is, and even gangs, so to speak. So even it doesn't have to be religious. There's a certain element of clothing that just like the military wears a uniform, and just like in Scotland they wear kilts, traditionally speaking, different communities have their traditional gear that identifies them as a member of that group. That's the case here in Israel very strongly and throughout the Middle East. It's not just that this clothing says you're Jewish or this clothing says you're Muslim or Christian. Different within those groups, there are signifiers that say I belong to the Visionsters, or I belong to this, or I belong to that, and it's sort of obvious to the people within the group what the different sort of families or tribes, you could say, that are within the group. So there's a bottom line, but then there are other ways that's expressed. Getting back to the point, the thrift haul, or not the thrift haul, but the garment store haul or fabric store haul, I picked up just enough fabric, chambray. It's really thin. Like I said, the store isn't the top quality. So for 20 shek, she gave it to me for 20 shek, 3 pieces of fabric that are, I think the white is probably 50 a meter. So I got a really good deal, and basically that amounts to 3 times 7 is 21, probably $5. I probably paid $5 US for what I'm about to show you. Let me get it out now. So this chambray is going to be the extension. Hopefully we'll see if it matches color-wise. And the reason I'm in a bomb shelter, between air raid type situations, bomb shelters are used for community events. I'm waiting for my friends. I have an American group I meet here, and so that's what we use this for in between. Sometimes they use them for libraries or for children's centers, or they just make use, and sometimes they use them actually for thrift stores. So there's one that I have not yet visited when it's open. I've taken clothes there to donate, but I haven't gone there to shop. So we'll have to make a stop there. But this right here is the chambray that I picked up, and it's quite thin. And that's the problem here. A lot of the clothes is for my taste, for an American taste, where we're used to clothing with linings. I guess not so much. People who rely on fast fashion are wearing a lot of clothing that is transparent. You can see a person's undergarments, intentionally or unintentionally. I think that's sort of the problem. So this is, I mean, if you mean to do that, that's one thing, but if you're not trying to do that and you just got a piece of cheap fabric, that's a little tough. As an extender, it's fine because it's covering my knees without making a big show around the more important parts to cover. So I have no problem with that. Somebody else might not be comfortable with that. I'm perfectly fine with it. The second piece is this white satin, and that's the thread that went flying. There's a transparency level, it's not opaque, and it is not something anybody would wear for a dress in the winter. A white satin dress, like to what? What are you gonna wear that to except for to get married? It's quite pure white, and it's not great quality. It's more of a lining fabric for a wedding dress than it is the actual wedding gown material. What you can wear it for is a nightgown. And the reason I got it was it's just large enough to make a bias cut dress. And so we won't do that in this video, but if you're interested in that, please let me know, write in the comments. I have some tips and tricks for how to manage fabric and keep it on the bias, on a true bias. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about it, but it sounds very complicated. They make it like, you know, and it is geometry, but it's not, it doesn't have to be horrible. And so I have some tricks for how to keep your fabric in line. So if you want to see that, please just, you know, say something in the comments. A third piece, which is not quite as big, which is this Kelly green. I am much more partial to more of a lime green or chartreuse, like things like that. But this Kelly green is very much in style. And so that's the nice thing about the remnant basket, is that it's usually the end of the roll, or because there was so much handling, it got damaged. Like that white fabric has a little bit of coffee on the edge. So somebody was drinking coffee by the cutting table, which is stupid. But it's perfect for what I want it for, which is to teach you how to manage that stuff and make a beautiful dress. Why do I get these remnants? Why do I limit myself to that? Because if I'm doing experiments, the whole idea of thrift flipping isn't just sustainability for the environment, for the world, but it should be sustainable for my pocketbook, right? For my family's budget. And so the idea is that if I am spending money making 2 or 3 trips to the fabric store to get $30 worth of notions or whatever it is, trim and things, I've now undercut the entire purpose of thrifting, whether it's a thrifted dress or it's using the remnants. I want to use this. The nice thing about keeping it cheap is I can make mistakes. I can experiment. I can go wild. I can do something that, you know, is unorthodox, and maybe there's a reason it's unorthodox. It doesn't work, but I get to try that out for myself. And so I'm very much in favor of keeping it cheap, keeping it simple. And along those lines, I would like to also make another video for you. Like this dress, it happens to be backwards. Like in high school on a Spirit Week, I went to public school, we would have Spirit Week, and you could wear clothing backwards if you wanted to. This dress works perfectly fine backwards so that the buttons run down the back. Why? Because the collar actually reaches quite low, lower than is comfortable in my community. Again, what some people do to solve that problem is to run a piece of lace across, but the lace is cheap, it's scratchy, and then I lose the benefit of being able to slip on the dress, which is the great thing about it. Sometimes the buttons do go too low, or the neckline, the opening goes too low, and I have an example of that where we'll be installing a zipper. So each case by case basis, I have to look at it. And that zipper actually came out of another garment that I think I did for a client, and we replaced the zipper. And so this zipper was brand new and it was in perfect shape. So I think we're gonna use that zipper to put together a viscose that is an embroidered dress. It's beautiful, but the cut is just too low. And that one I'm gonna leave in the front, but I'm gonna zip it up. And then I'll be able to keep the beautiful embroidery intact. That's the other thing. I like to keep whatever's working in the garment, work with that. Don't try to there's a beauty in that, and I get so inspired by all the videos I see on YouTube, but that's not really what I'm going for, is really work with what I have. And my friends are coming in, so this is a very echoey place, so I'm just gonna have to cut it short here. And we'll see what comes of our project. See you in a bit.